In any relationship, you can sometimes find yourself stuck in a negative feedback loop. It's where something becomes a pattern. And then before you know it, that pattern, well, it becomes a habit. And then you and the other person both begin to respond instinctively instead of consciously. And you're both contributing to and feeding off of that negative feedback loop. Some of the signs of a negative feedback loop are a sense of tension, of discomfort, where criticism is increased and bids for attention go unrecognized and unacknowledged. It's a feeling as though your gears are misaligned, so that the gears are grinding against each other instead of helping you move forward together in unison. And often when we're faced with this feedback loop, we tend towards inaction. The problem with that is that inaction is actually acceptance of this unchanging path. The only way to change it is to do so intentionally with action. These are the steps for breaking out of a negative feedback loop. The first step is simply to recognize the pattern. And that's often harder than it seems, because when you're lost, you see the trees, not the trail. You see what's in your way, but not how to get through it. And so part of this is going to be to sort of step back and be curious of, I wonder what's causing this. What are the antecedents to any reactions that we have? Seek to observe, not pass judgment. The second step is to confront the negative feedback loop. This means that you might need to initiate some difficult conversations with your partner. Importantly, it also means you need to listen to your partner. And you also need to work really hard to not be defensive. Because if you respond defensively, you're simply adding to that negative feedback cycle. The third step is to be brutally open and honest. Now, with that, make sure you pay attention to your intentions with anything that you say. If your intention is to wound, to hurt, that does not need to be said. But if your intention instead is to express some core truth, even if it's uncomfortable, those are words worth saying. Also, be brutally open and honest with yourself. Question your assumptions, your convictions. You know, the way that our minds work is there's the truth, and then there's the stories that we tell ourselves about it. And this is a time when you might need to strip away some of those stories that you've been telling yourself. The fourth step to breaking out of a negative feedback loop is to own your part. Take responsibility for your piece in this loop, because your partner did not create this all on their own accord. The two of you built this together. And so figure out what parts you can take responsibility for, and then take responsibility for changing that. The fifth step is to seek understanding. And here's how I like to think of it. If you are faced with a difficult knot to untangle, what's the first thing you do? You turn it over in your hands and you examine it, and you look for those loose spots, those openings, those places where you can start to find a little progress. This is no different. You're going to need to take some time to turn all of this over in your mind and to really examine all angles of it and see where you have some space to do the work. The sixth step is to forego blame. And I know that that can be difficult. You know, it's so easy to blame others. Especially because we judge others by their actions, but yet we judge ourselves by our intentions. And so we often will assign blame, assign intent to somebody's actions when maybe that's not what they meant after all. Also with blame, it's a winless game. It's not going to help you or your partner heal. And it's certainly not going to undo this vicious cycle that you're in. It simply has no place in moving forward. The 7th step in healing a negative feedback loop is to take a step back. And I know that's hard because when you're in a tough spot with your partner, the last thing you want to do is let go because you're so scared of losing them. And so your reaction is to grip tighter. I like to think of it like a stuck zipper. You can keep forcing it and trying to pull it forward, but if it's misaligned, it's only going to make it worse, maybe even break the zipper. What do you do instead? Well, you back it up, and you back it up until the teeth are aligned correctly. And that's when you can begin to proceed. This is no different. You might need to take a step back, take some space, either literally or metaphorically. But when you have that space, that's when you can realign so that you can move forward again. The 8th step, well, that's to take action. You got to this space unintentionally through inaction. But to get out, that's going to take deliberate steps. So get busy. The 9th step is an important one, and that's to stay positive. I know you're in a really hard place right now. I know it's scary. You don't know what the future holds. Home right now doesn't feel like a sanctuary. It's a difficult place to be in. But if you let yourself get too mired in that negativity, you're not going to get out. So do everything that you can, everything in your power to keep your mindset positive and to keep hope alive. The 10th step is to focus on language. We all have certain tones or phrases or ways of speaking that we respond positively to, and those that we find triggering. And right now, you and your partner both are in a fragile place. You're in a place where you're going to be more reactive than usual. So take care to use the language and the tone that they respond well to. And hopefully, they'll do the same in kind. 11th step is to be patient, yet persistent. It took time for these patterns and habits to develop, and it's going to take time for them to change. That being said, time alone isn't enough. You also have to do the work. That being said, time alone isn't enough. You have to keep working at it. And the 12th and final step is this. Remember that even though it doesn't always feel like it, you and your partner are on the same side. You ultimately want the same things. You want to be heard. You want to be seen. You want to feel safe. And you want to feel loved. You want the same things, even if you don't want it in the same ways. So remember, you're in this fight together.